Okay, so this is adding and subtraction with number lines and focused on actual word problems. The last video got cut off just a little bit. This should have been negative 135 calories, just like we found when using the number line method. The next problem. Damien's family budgets $375 for back to school clothes and supplies. Okay. That number 375 is really important, so I might put a box around it or highlight it. After 2 days of shopping, Damien's family has spent is a big key. We got 103 on supplies, and then we have $207.25 on clothes. So this problem's a little bit different because we know our final budget and then we know how much he's actually spent. So I am going to start with 0 down on this end of my number line this time because we know that it's all going to stay in the positive. I know that 207.25 and 103 is not going to, the sum of that is not going to be greater than 375. So that's why I feel safe in making my 0 here because I'm not going to end up in the negative. So if we know, sometimes, it's not always the easiest thing to do to use a scale and count by the same thing because here we're using money, which makes it a little bit more difficult because we have these decimals. So once you get really familiar with these things, you can start just kind of eyeballing it and then doing the calculations using the equations to then come up with your specific final answer. So down here I'm going to put 375 because we know that is the budget for the day. So we know or for the back to school clothes and supplies. So if we know that our top dollar amount's down here, then we can then subtract what he has spent and land on the correct number. So let's go ahead. The first thing we want to do is take away what they spent. So if I know this is 375 and I split this into kind of thirds, I know that 103 is going to be roughly a third of the way back. Okay, so I might just guesstimate and say I took off 103 here. Okay, and that's going to land me somewhere. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not finished with taking this stuff away either. So I'm going to leave it as is. So then once we have that taken away, we can then take away 207.25, which we know that's going to get us the majority of the way back down here. So let's just kind of guesstimate here. This is taking away 207.25, and that's going to land us somewhere in here. Okay, so if we used a calculator, we could just say 375 minus this, and that's going to kind of give us where our landing spot is. So let's go ahead and let's flip this over. Let's do the calculations, and then we can put our final answer back on the number line. So we know in this problem that we start out with a budget of $375. Okay, from there, we know that he spent 103, and then he also spent 207.25. This added together, if we look at what he spent altogether, that's going to give us 310.25. So we know he has a budget of 375, and we know that he spent this much. So then we could just do a simple subtraction problem. So if we did 375 minus 310.25, that's going to give us 64.75, which is our final answer. So he's going to have, and it's going to be positive because he still has this money left to spend. He didn't overspend. Okay, because if he overspent, he would be in the negatives. He has 64.75 left to spend, and that's in the positive. So 64.75 left over after he spent his money for school supplies and for clothes. So I want you to go ahead and work problem 3 and then come back and play the video when you have finished it, because it's going to give you the directions for the next skill or the next thing you're going to do on the flip side. So go ahead and work it, pause the video, and then come back. Hopefully you watched that and worked that one out. On this flip side, I just would like you to come up with a story problem that could result in the following number sentence. So a story problem that could result in the following number sentence. You can work with somebody on this, but you should have differences in your story problem. So you might talk it out with somebody, but then you should have different problems in your notebook, because when I go to do the notebook check, I'm going to be looking for those differences. So this is the number sentence. You want to write a story problem that would result in this number sentence. So good luck with that, and I will be checking over those when I do a notebook check.